After 12 years of incredible sacrifice working 3 jobs as a single mom, an amazing twist at her workplace turned Maria's world upside down. The small town of Maplewood was a tightly knit bubble where everyone knew each other's names. Yet within that familiarity, Maria had become a hidden warrior. She juggled her roles as a waitress at the local diner, a cleaning lady at the elementary school, and a legal assistant, all for the sake of her spirited teenage daughter, Lily. With each dawn breaking, Maria gathered every ounce of strength within her to ensure that Lily had the opportunities in life that eluded her own grasp. But now, standing in the lobby of the law firm, dread coiled tightly around her chest as she listened to murmurs of layoffs. Despite her unwavering dedication, she felt like a ghost in the very place she'd poured her soul into. The words of the managing partner echoed in her mind. Budget cuts, restructuring, phrases that pierced her heart like daggers. Maria's thoughts spiraled as she envisioned what losing her job would mean. No safety net, no stable future for Lily, her dreams unraveling. What if this was the tipping point? That familiar ache of doubt nestled within her, casting shadows over her once bright hopes. She recalled the sleepless nights, the aching back from long shifts, all to instill the drive in Lily. How could she hope at all if she couldn't provide? Would her years of hard work mean nothing in the blink of an eye? The dissonance between her past and present clawed at her, making the air around her feel thick as molasses. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With the vulnerability of her situation escalating, Maria found herself spiraling into desperation. The slip of paper with her name scrawled on it felt like a noose tightening around her aspirations. Her heart sank at the thought of disappointing Lily. What if this was where their dreams fractured? She clenched her fists, embodying that insatiable warrior spirit she had cultivated over so many years. A flicker of hope emerged, ignited by Mr. Thompson, her former law professor. He had always believed in her, always saw the potential buried beneath the surface of her commitments to motherhood. But in reaching out to him, was she risking too much? To own this small connection and to lean on it? Was she grasping at straws or seizing a lifeline? The tension coiling within would not relent, manifesting in the form of sleepless nights filled with worry and questions. As she prepared to meet with Mr. Thompson and brainstorm a presentation for the firm's upcoming corporate meeting, anxiety surged like electricity through her veins. She needed to unveil the inequalities that paralyzed hard-working employees like herself, to make them see her struggle as more than just a statistic. But would her voice carry weight? The stakes felt mountainous, almost insurmountable, yet with Lily's impending graduation looming, Maria could no longer afford hesitation. This wasn't just about a job. It was a fight for recognition, to stand tall in a world that often dismissed those who fought. As she rehearsed her presentation late into the night, the blackout of all hope surrounded her. The power flickered, a sudden silence enveloped her thoughts. Maria gripped the edge of her desk, every muscle taut, her heart racing. The culmination of the fight against a system that threatened to reduce her to nothing was upon her. In that moment, with uncertainty palpable and darkness lurking, Maria realized she was standing not just for herself, but for every unseen mother, every worker torn between dreams and reality. The outcome loomed, the tension thick and charged, as the world waited with bated breath on the brink of her impending revelation. Maria's fingers trembled on the keyboard as she finalized her presentation. Each word felt like an anchor, carefully weighing her hopes against the looming reality. The clock ticked loudly in the silence of her dimly lit apartment, echoing the urgency that enveloped her. She was caught between her relentless drive to secure a future for Lily and the overwhelming imposter syndrome that threatened her confidence. What if she stumbled on the first slide? What if her voice cracked under pressure? But in an unprecedented surge of determination, she pushed her fears aside. Gathering the documents spread across her desk, she sorted them into a neat pile. Her mind flashed to Lily, the way her eyes sparkled when talking about her future, how the girl was counting on her to pave the way. This wasn't merely about words on a screen or a job at risk. It was about paving a path of possibility for her daughter. As dawn broke, its rays spilling through the curtains, Maria inhaled deeply, the fresh morning air infusing her with a fragility she didn't want to acknowledge. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, soaking in the fatigue and determination etched deep into her features. Today was a turning point, each moment a chance to reclaim her narrative. Arriving at the law firm, her heart hammered against her chest as she passed colleagues whose faces bore the same weight of uncertainty. She forced herself to keep her gaze steady, refusing to blend into the shadows of anxiety that hung heavy in the air. This was her moment to be heard. It wasn't just a presentation, but a declaration of her existence in a space that had almost forgotten her. Mr. Thompson greeted her with a reassuring nod, a small flicker of warmth amidst the cold reality of the firm's atmosphere. They exchanged a few words before he led her into the conference room. The space was intimidating, each polished surface reflecting her uncertainty. But as she stood in front of the room, connecting with the people seated before her, Maria felt a swell of resilience rise within her. She took a breath, and as she began to speak, the tremor in her voice steadied. The slides unveiled not just the stark data of budget cuts, but the human stories, the real faces behind the statistics. She shared her own journey, laying bare the sacrifices and relentless nights that had shaped her. For every data point that highlighted inequality, she offered a personal testament, the quiet dignity of those who worked behind the scenes, the ones who tied the frayed edges of the community together. It wasn't just a battle for her job. It morphed into a fight for respect, validation, and acknowledgement of the invisible labor that often went unnoticed. The looks on the faces around her shifted from indifference to engagement, and for the first time, she felt the weight of her truth resonating in the room. With each passing moment, she saw herself not as a ghost, but as a beacon, lighting a way through the fog. However, as she wrapped up, a familiar face, the managing partner, interrupted with a question that cut deep. "But how does your story apply to those of us who don't feel this way?" Maria's heart raced again. The question lingered like a sword poised to strike. She had prepared for many scenarios, but this was a direct challenge to her truth. The tension in the room shifted, her resolve hanging in the balance. Marshalling her mental strength, she met his gaze squarely. The moment called for a tangible response, one that could reshape perceptions. Would she rise to the occasion and confront the underlying biases, or shrink into disbelief? The audience awaited her answer, the tension palpable. Maria prepared herself, straining against the tight grip of doubt that threatened to pull her under. For once, she was ready to fight, not just for survival, but for recognition, inclusion, and change. The stakes had never been higher. She inhaled sharply, feeling every heartbeat echo in her ears as she began, "This is the fight for all of us," and dared to venture into the confrontation. As she spoke, an unexpected clarity washed over her. This was not merely about her journey. It might just ignite a movement towards awareness and understanding within a culture that had long overlooked the unheard. Would her words resonate enough to make a difference? Would they persuade others to see not just her struggle, but the collective experience of those who shared her burdens? The outcome, uncertain but brimming with potential, hung in the delicate balance of her next breath. Maria felt the weight of the room shift the moment she declared her intent. Her voice echoed, stronger than she had anticipated, threaded with an urgency that felt both empowering and terrifying. She looked into the eyes of her audience, searching for a connection, hoping for understanding. The managing partner's skepticism was palpable, but his challenge ignited a fire within her. "It's about recognizing the barriers many of us face each and every day," she continued, drawing on the visceral memories of sleepless nights and relentless struggles. Each word became a thread, weaving a narrative not just of her life, but potentially of others who felt their experiences mirrored hers. She initiated a subtle shift, her presentation transforming into a conversation, a plea for acknowledgement rather than a straightforward report. "These budget cuts affect not just numbers on a spreadsheet, they affect parents who work multiple jobs like many of us here," she added. "They affect children who may not have access to resources others take for granted. These stories matter." The reaction was immediate. Some in the room shifted, exchanging glances with admiration, while others furrowed their brows in contemplation. A ripple of recognition began to flow, the tension shifting like a tide. She knew that behind the masks they wore, each one of them had their battles. Maria was surprised to discover her own vulnerability becoming her greatest strength. The man who initially asked the challenging question leaned back in his chair, contemplating. His expression, which had begun as dismissive, now seemed to be absorbing her message. Fueled by this development, Maria pressed on, her voice unwavering. "In recognizing these struggles, we elevate our collective humanity. This isn't just policy, it's about people." Minutes felt like hours, and yet, in that moment, time expanded and contracted just as her emotions did. She sensed the solidarity of her colleagues forming, as if they were all interlinked through shared struggles, though it took the boldness of her heart to pull them together. Drawing a deep breath, she risked showing them who she truly was, inviting them into her life, revealing her challenges and then mirroring the unspoken fears of many around her. Taking that risk injected new energy into her performance. As she navigated the interactive discussion that began to unfold, the outlines of her professional existence started blending into her personal narrative. No longer just a single mother fighting against the odds, she transformed into a conduit for expression, a voice reverberating hopes and challenges that mirrored her colleagues. After what felt like a lifetime, the session drew to a close, a tangible shift in atmosphere emerging. Laughter broke the tension as someone shared a light-hearted remark. Others chimed in, discussing ways to implement more inclusive practices and how every member's contribution could redefine the firm's policies. Maria could feel herself levitating above her doubts. The transformation within the atmosphere was palpable. As she concluded, Mr. Thompson approached her with a mixture of pride and respect on his face. "That was inspiring, Maria," he said. "You might have significantly shifted the narrative here." Her heart swelled, yet a new unease emerged. The fight was far from over, and she felt the urge to maintain momentum. In that moment of victory, a flicker of doubt caught her off guard. Could she bear this newfound visibility? Would they still see her as a valuable part of the team, or merely a storyteller who momentarily lit up the room? "I need to prepare for what's next. This isn't just a singular moment," Maria thought, acknowledging the calories of tension radiating within her, but now transformed into anticipation. The potential for change was stirring in her mind, yet uncertainty also loomed large. As colleagues dispersed and she collected her belongings, a gnawing question surfaced. Who would she become in this unfolding story? Would she embrace her role, or would she retreat back to the shadows of self-doubt? The conference ringed with her unanswered questions, echoing as she left the room. The next steps awaited her, full of promise and peril. The moment had indeed come to face her greatest trials, but would she find the courage to navigate this new landscape? The morning light streamed through the office windows, illuminating the faint remnants of the previous day's energy. Maria was back at her desk, though the excitement from her presentation lingered, urging her to rethink her next steps. She pulled up her email and inexplicably paused, her heart racing as she scanned potentially life-altering messages. Each unopened email felt like an invitation to advance, or a test of her resolve. Am I enough for this? The thought echoed in her mind, a drumming cadence against her determination. The blend of hope and apprehension intertwined, leaving her restless. It was as if the energy from the conference had shifted something fundamental within her, connecting her to an identity she had long overlooked, one that was fierce, unapologetic, and courageous in its truth. The clock ticked on, nudging her from her introspection. She reluctantly turned her attention back to her tasks, combing through spreadsheets and budget outlines. Yet the figures felt abstract compared to the vivid conversations she had instigated. There was a disconnect between the numbers on her monitor and the human stories pulsing in her mind. As she methodically sorted through her work, an unexpected pang of resolve stirred. I need to turn this momentum into something actionable. With a renewed purpose, she began drafting a proposal for a workshop series aimed at fostering an environment for open dialogue around financial strains among employees. The idea took form like a carefully woven tapestry of shared experiences, each thread illustrating a different struggle. With each passing hour, her excitement grew. She envisioned a platform where voices like hers could be amplified, infrastructures for support could be built, and a change could take root, transforming not only policies, but lives. She would be the architect of that change, meticulously planning each detail. However, interruptions soon emerged in the guise of doubt. The inner critic whispered, "What if they dismiss it? What if it falls flat?" Those voices threatened to overshadow her resolve. But just as the deflating thoughts began to loom larger, memories of her previous day's triumph surged back. She recalled the fleeting moments of connection, the laughter that erupted, the collective realization of shared struggles. The flickering embers of hope ignited a rebellion against the discouragement. With purposeful focus, Maria pressed on, bulleting key points and potential topics for discussion. This task wasn't merely procedural, it was an act of personal affirmation and reclamation of her narrative. She crafted sections about budgeting strategies for single-parent households, tips for navigating workplace stress, and fostering emotional resilience. Suddenly her phone buzzed, jolting her attention away from her screen. It was Mr. Thompson. "Can you join me in my office? I have something I'd like to discuss." A cascade of emotions washed over her. Curiosity, anxiety, anticipation. She took a steadying breath, her heart galloping in her chest. Had her presentation truly made an impact, or was this merely a routine check-in? The uncertainty ignited a familiar fear. Perhaps she had overstepped her boundaries, hastily asserting ideas that more experienced colleagues might resist. Steeling herself, she pushed away from her desk, discomfort morphing into dare. This was about growth. Whatever the discussion held, it would teach her something. She rose, her stride firm with necessity. The door closed behind her as she entered Mr. Thompson's office, the decor mirroring the corporate nature of their environment. But today, it felt more like an arena. He gestured for her to sit, his demeanor hinting at both seriousness and curiosity. "Maria," he began, his tone earnest, "your presentation ignited something in the firm, and I believe there's potential to formalize your ideas." With that statement, Maria's pulse quickened, the stakes rising in her mind. This was the moment that stretched before her, a threshold beckoning her forward. She realized in that instant she was no longer merely a woman ruled by narratives from her past. Instead, she was on the cusp of defining her own. Yet as the conversation unfolded, revealing both possibilities and challenges, a deeper conflict loomed, her own belief in herself. Could she step fully into this role? Could she lead this initiative and, in doing so, continue to carve her name into her sector's history? With decisions looming and expectations mounting, she braced herself, realizing the path ahead would demand an undeterred resolve alongside a fierce resilience. Was she prepared for the battles that might come with such a responsibility? Maria felt her heart beat at the intersection of hope and trepidation, aware that the real test of her character was only beginning. What awaited her in the unfolding journey? Should feel overwhelmed by this sudden spotlight. This wasn't merely a review of her presentation. It felt like an unveiling of her potential. Mr. Thompson leaned back, his eyes locked onto hers, clearly weighing how his next words could either solidify or undermine her resolve. I want you to lead a team to develop this workshop series, he said, his tone steady. You have the instincts, Maria, and frankly, the firm needs a fresh perspective. The weight of his declaration settled over her, both exhilarating and suffocating. Lead a team? She repeated, unsure of her voice. On one hand, the idea sparked joy within her, the creative energy of guiding others and cultivating meaningful change. On the other, it pushed her fears into the spotlight, the voice of doubt echoing, "Do you really think you can do this?" "Exactly," Mr. Thompson replied, sensing her hesitation. "You might not be aware of your capabilities yet, but the energy you bring is contagious. Your presentation opened a door, and I believe you can walk through it." Yet the walls of her old self tugged at her, whispering that she might not belong in this new realm of authority. Her heart raced as she envisioned a team's eyes on her, the responsibility of leading them weighing heavily on her shoulders. Could she guide them through challenges, address their concerns, and ensure that this initiative didn't just fizzle out? "What about my current workload?" she challenged, attempting to ground the conversation. She feared that leading such a project could unravel the delicate balance she had already fought to maintain. "How can I pursue this without dropping the ball on my responsibilities?" Mr. Thompson paused, contemplating her words. "We will allocate resources to simplify your current tasks. The firm values your contribution, so we want to support you in this growth." As he spoke, doubt cast its long shadow again, reminding her that she was navigating uncharted territories. What if I fail? What if my ideas aren't what the team needs? "You have to think bigger than that," he advised, his voice unwavering. "Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of it. Embrace those failures as teachers and let them shape you. This is all about stepping up and leading." Maria felt her breath shallow, a bomb of anxiety set to detonate at any moment. The balance between daring and doubt teetered precariously, and she struggled to recapture the bravery she had introduced during her presentation. In that moment, she glimpsed a future alive with possibilities, but burdened by the weight of self-doubt and fear of invalidation. "You do understand that this isn't just a job to me," she said, her voice firm despite her trembling insides. "This is everything I've been fighting for, the chance to create something meaningful. But I need to know you'll support me, otherwise I can't take this leap." "Support?" Mr. Thompson's brow furrowed as he leaned forward. "Maria, it's not just about oversight. This firm is behind you, and if you stumble, we'll be right there to pick you back up. But I can't guarantee every decision you make will be perfect. That's part of leadership." His words hung in the air, thick with the challenge they represented. Maria grappled with the idea of redefining her role, transforming from someone who merely executed plans to someone who would craft them. It was exhilarating yet terrifying. "Let me think about it," Maria finally said, swallowing the knot in her throat. Her heart pulsed with the weight of her choice. As she walked back to her desk, the path ahead seemed as expansive as it was fraught. There was no roadmap for her new role, and with her pulse quickened by uncertainty, she felt the sharp edges of her fears mingle with budding excitement. With the day stretching out and the workshop idea taking root in her mind, a new worry began to blossom. How would she select the right people for her team? What if she chose individuals who didn't align with her vision? What if they resisted her ideas, the very ones she felt so passionately about? Staring out of the office window, contemplating her next move, one thought crystallized. She wasn't just on the brink of leadership. She was standing at the edge of defining her identity as a professional. How far would she be willing to go to cement her place within this new sphere? The real challenge awaited in the moment she had to choose her team, and with it, the potential to create not just a workshop, but a culture of empowerment. The following morning felt heavy with the weight of new expectations, a stark contrast to the typical routine Maria had grown accustomed to. As she settled into her workspace, the glowing screens in front of her became both a portal to opportunity and a reminder of the many questions swirling in her mind. The gravity of Mr. Thompson's proposal loomed large, and with it came an urgent need to decide how to approach the journey ahead. Selecting her team was paramount, an act that felt like a delicate dance between intuition and strategy. She opened her notes from yesterday's meeting, each bullet point representing not only her ideas, but also the pulse of her aspirations. Yet, lurking within was a persistent voice, doubt, subtly undermining her intentions. What made her think she could unify a group and inspire them? She had little experience at the helm, and leading was a skill she had only observed, never practiced. She thought back to her childhood, her mother working tirelessly to provide for their family. Maria had always admired her ability to forge paths where none existed, to remain resolute against the odds stacked against them. The fire of determination flickered within her, recalling the many instances she had assumed the role of an unofficial leader among her peers, often organizing study groups and rallies, never shying away from stepping up when needed. Recalling these moments, she let out a breath, feeling a flicker of reassurance. Perhaps she did carry the capability to lead a team. But that wasn't enough. She needed to develop a clear vision, something coherent and inspiring to draw in her future collaborators. Turning back to her notes, Maria pondered the ideal characteristics of her potential team. She needed individuals who could challenge her ideas, contribute creatively, and foster a spirit of collaboration. Trying to narrow down faces from the vast pool of talent within the firm felt daunting. At this moment, it struck her. She should look beyond competency, seeking those who shared a similar vision for empowerment and innovation. With renewed focus, she picked up her phone and began scrolling through her contacts. She started to compile a list of colleagues she admired, each one embodying a different flavor of talent. A digital marketing strategist who had always impressed her, a skilled facilitator known for his engaging workshops, a rising star in design who had transformed her presentations into visual narratives that captivated audiences. However, as she typed, a sensation of hesitation washed over her. What if her colleagues didn't see the value in her ideas? Would they dismiss her vision as just another passing thought from a new manager? Maria paused, her thoughts racing. She recognized this pattern of self-sabotage. The fear of rejection had been stifling her for far too long. She recalled Mr. Thompson's words about embracing failure. It wasn't merely a setback, but rather an essential educator. Empowered by this realization, Maria resolved to approach her chosen team members with authenticity. She would share her vision, invite them to contribute, and emphasize that collaboration would be at the heart of this initiative. That first conversation would be crucial. It would set the tone for a partnership founded on mutual respect and shared goals. Just as she was about to finalize her list, a sudden thought struck her. What if she reached out to someone she had never considered? A demographic or individual outside her immediate circle might bring the fresh perspective she had intended to cultivate. Shifting in her seat, a thought emerged. An assistant from another department, someone known for their innovative ideas but often overlooked in larger meetings. Before she could second-guess herself, Maria made a note beside her list. Broaden scope. Consider unconventional choices. Her heart raced with the possibilities emanating from her decision. Each name represented not only her choice of collaborators, but the emergence of her identity as a leader. In this moment of establishing her team, Maria began to redefine not just her role, but her self-image. She felt liberated by the act of choosing, to select, to connect, and to build something together. But as she prepared to send that first invitation to meet, a shadow of doubt yet again loomed. What if she failed to create that culture of empowerment? The moment hovered delicately, opening a chasm of anticipation for what was to come. What awaited her in that first meeting? Would her vision resonate, or would it fall flat, leaving her to confront her fears in a stark reality? As the hour approached, one universal truth echoed in her mind. Courage often lies not in the absence of fear, but in the willingness to face it head-on, an invitation into the unknown. With her heart pounding, Maria took a deep breath, realizing the next steps she took wouldn't only shape the workshop, but also solidify her place within this new landscape of leadership. And at that precipice, Maria knew her journey was just beginning as she prepared to discover what lay on the other side of her resolve. Would she seize the moment or shrink back into the shadows she had worked so hard to escape? Maria leaned back in her chair, reviewing her notes one last time. Her chest tightened with anticipation and apprehension as she reread the messages she had drafted. The invitations to meet would be the first real step towards building the team that could ignite her vision. Yet, with each passing moment, the weight of responsibility pressed down on her, threatening to suffocate her resolve. She reminded herself of the strength she carried within, drawing on those memories of leading rallying cries in her school days, where her voice ignited enthusiasm among her peers. But this was different. This was no high school assembly. These were seasoned professionals, and she would be their leader. The specter of inadequacy loomed, whispering doubts that threatened to derail her newfound determination. What if they saw through her facade? What if the depth of her inexperience was laid bare? Time ticked on, and she felt the pull of the meeting drawing closer, an electric current of chaos tethered to uncharted possibilities. Staring at her calendar, Maria's breath hitched. Her first meeting was just minutes away. She stood, smoothing her clothes, evoking memories of her mother's steadfastness. Believing in herself often felt like unshackling decades of self-imposed limitations. It was about time she embodied that resilience. As she readied herself, a flood of excitement mingled with her anxiety. She would not only introduce her vision, but also engage her colleagues in an open dialogue, inviting their insights. This would not merely be a conveyance of information, but rather the inception of collaboration. This was her chance to create a culture rooted in shared ideas, a notion that lit a fire within her. More importantly, Maria acknowledged the importance of setting the right tone. She envisioned beginning with transparency, opening up about her ambitions while being honest about her fears. It struck her then. Vulnerability could be her strongest ally. It could serve as a bridge between her and her potential team, illustrating that leadership doesn't demand perfection, but rather authenticity and a willingness to learn. Maria moved to her desk, pulse now racing harder. She opened her contacts list once again, momentarily fighting the congested clutter of uncertainty crawling back into her mind. She clicked on the name of the assistant she had noted, the one who seemed to thrive in the background, but whose ideas sparkled brightly within her memory. This time, Maria committed to a bold choice. She shot a quick text. "Would love for you to join a collaborative meeting I'm leading. Your insights could really help shape our direction." With her heart pounding against her ribs, she hit send. The weight of the decision felt empowering. She had actively chosen to embrace the unconventional, to liberate her team from the confines of typical hierarchies. Soon, the recognized and the overlooked would share a space, levying their experiences in mutually beneficial ways. As the meeting door creaked open, she was met with a kaleidoscope of expressions from her colleagues. Some bore curiosity, others carried skepticism. Maria inhaled deeply, steadying herself against the wave of emotions washing over her. Each face represented an opportunity to ignite a spark, to cultivate collaboration. But she needed to take the plunge. "Thank you for gathering here today," she began, her voice steadying as she spoke. "I am excited about what we can accomplish together, and I'm eager to hear your thoughts." The gravity of her words lingered in the air, inviting curiosity, apprehension, and perhaps a challenge from the group. The moment felt pivotal. It was time to confront the stretch of her potential, not just as a leader, but as the person she was becoming. An array of questions opened within her mind. How would they respond? Would they embrace her vision with the enthusiasm she hoped for? As the discussion unfolded, the energy in the room began to shift. Ideas flowed, objections were raised, and the team transformed into a crucible of creativity. Maria's fear began to ebb, replaced by an exhilarating connection to the dialogue unfolding. Yet, Amidst the collaborative atmosphere, an undercurrent of tension threaded through her thoughts. What if her vision didn't align with theirs? What if, despite their initial excitement, they ultimately couldn't follow through on their commitments? With that realization, Maria understood the delicate balance awaiting her, the importance of cultivating not only ideas, but also a sustainable culture of accountability and empowerment. This journey would require more than just bold decisions. It would demand ongoing dialogue and deep-rooted trust. In that moment, she knew the narrative was shifting, but it was far from written. As she faced her team, brimming with ideas and insights, a single pulse of yearning flickered within her, a desperate aspiration to lead with both integrity and courage. What awaited her beyond this pivot point? Would the vision she built resonate, or would unforeseen challenges test her resolve in unexpected ways? Each choice she made could redefine her path as a leader and further test the boundaries of her emerging identity. The discussions evolved into a symphony of ideas, churning through innovative solutions and prompting Maria's pulse to quicken. Each contribution from her colleagues echoed back to her core mission, steadily solidifying her belief that their collaboration could flourish. Yet waves of self-doubt still lurked in the corners of her mind, ready to surge at any moment. Sitting at the head of the table, she fought against the sensation of being an imposter, battling the gnawing thought that perhaps she was not the visionary leader they needed. What if her drive wasn't enough? Pushing those fears aside, Maria maintained her focus, leaning into the collective energy that filled the room. An unexpected pause fell across the group as John, one of the more experienced colleagues, interjected. "I respect what you've initiated here, Maria, but how can we trust this process will lead to real results? We've seen ambitious ideas come and go, and skepticism is part of the job." His words hit a raw nerve, awakening an unsettling doubt in Maria's gut. Could he be right? Did she have what it took to turn ideas into action? She mulled over a quick rebuttal, but decided instead to embrace vulnerability, as she had planned. "Thank you for sharing that, John. It's important for us to critically engage with our goals. Let me share what I envision, and then maybe we can work together to shape a path that resonates with everyone." Instead of feeling diminished by his skepticism, Maria felt a swell of determination surge through her. She needed to lean into the discomfort, transforming potential chaos into dialogue that cultivated trust and clarity. With each subsequent exchange, she engaged the team by prompting them with questions that provoked thought rather than just seeking agreement. Her approach opened avenues for rich discussions, and she watched her colleagues shift from uncertain expressions to animated postures. Ideas were bouncing around freely, and for the first time, Maria glimpsed the potential of synergy in action. Amid the exchange, Maria noted the subtle gesture of Anne, the quiet assistant from the back office who had joined the meeting after receiving her text. As the room erupted with energetic conversation, Anne smiled faintly, jotting down notes. Could there be undiscovered talents hidden within her? She had always sensed Anne's creativity. Perhaps she simply needed an opportunity to shine. But as the meeting unfolded, Maria struggled to shake a creeping unease. The weight of John's comment lingered like a specter, and she recognized it was not only about fostering enthusiasm, it was about delivering real, measurable outcomes that could support her vision. The fear of failure loomed large, enhancing the stakes of this burgeoning collaboration. Would her efforts yield tangible results, or were they simply constructing castles in the air? Facades began to shatter, revealing diverse perspectives as team members shared their concerns over achievable goals. It struck Maria that this environment of open dialogue was a necessary prerequisite to accountability. The conversation spiraled into constructive debates. Yet amid the intellectual play, Maria felt an urgent need to consolidate this chaos into something actionable. When the session drew to a close, a sense of accomplishment rippled through her, but doubt still curled like mist at her feet. She needed a game plan, not just for the next steps in executing their ideas, but also for sustaining their momentum. She envisioned formalizing the process, implementing regular check-ins, but how to ensure her team would remain engaged and accountable. As they wrapped up, positivity buzzed through the room. Maria chose to close the meeting by expressing gratitude for their contributions, affirming a commitment to not just maintain the energy they had cultivated, but also to actively create a shared vision together. Yet, as she watched her colleagues disperse, something gnawed at her: the reality of next steps and the necessity for her team to maintain focus. Closing her laptop, she vowed to lay the groundwork for their initiatives to avoid becoming another fleeting project on their busy agendas. In the stillness of the afternoon, Maria gazed out the window, grappling with the enormity of the journey ahead. Each decision she faced would shape her leadership style and identity, and deep within, a new realization unearthed itself. In this venture, she was not just building a team, she was forging her own path. Would she rise to meet the challenges awaiting her, or would the fears of inadequacy bind her further? The reflection of her own story loomed larger within her, as she wondered if she had just unlocked the door to her true potential, or merely stood on the threshold. Maria awoke the next morning with a renewed sense of purpose. As sunlight flooded her workspace, the shadows of doubt that once loomed over her felt fragile, a mere flicker against the bright possibilities that lay ahead. She rose earlier than usual, driven by a need to transform yesterday's dialogues into actionable priorities. Her mind swirled with insights from the previous day's meeting. Those shared ideas weren't just words, they were blueprints for a future she envisioned. She meticulously drafted a plan, outlining clear goals, assigning roles based on emerging strengths, and scheduling regular check-ins. Each bullet point represented not only the logistical framework, but also a growing belief in her role as a leader. But deep within, a whisper of fear persisted. Had she adequately distanced her personal insecurities from her professional decisions? Her thoughts drifted back to John's skepticism. What if their ambitious plan fell apart, validating his doubts? The very notion made her stomach twist. Ironically, that fear spurred her to action. Instead of retreating beneath a veil of anxiety, Maria resolved to confront it with transparency. With a focused mind, she sent an email to the team, inviting them to a brainstorming session to refine the outlined project plan. As she hit send, a weight lifted from her shoulders. Engaging them further would not just solidify commitments, it would bond them as a unit with shared stakes. In that moment of clarity, Maria recalled Anne's quiet enthusiasm as she took notes during the last meeting. Maria decided it was time to involve her more directly. Not only did Anne possess organizational skills that could be indispensable, but Maria suspected she held untapped talents just waiting to be unveiled. Later that day, as Maria walked through the office, she sought out Anne with a growing sense of anticipation. "Hey, Anne, can I speak with you for a moment?" she called, gesturing towards the small conference room. "Sure, Maria. What's on your mind?" Anne responded, her voice even but tinged with curiosity. Once settled, Maria leaned forward, her confidence bridging the gap between them. "I wanted to see if you'd be interested in co-leading the upcoming session. I've noticed how engaged you were during our discussions, and I think your perspective could really guide us." A flicker of surprise crossed Anne's face, but it quickly morphed into a bashful smile. "I'd love to help. I didn't think my ideas mattered that much." "You have no idea how valuable they are," Maria assured her, sensing a deeper well of untapped potential in her shy colleague. "We all have something to contribute, and I truly believe you can inspire the team to elevate our goals." As they discussed the upcoming session, Maria noticed a shift in Anne's demeanor. The hesitance began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of ownership and purpose. Maria realized that she wasn't just finding a collaborator, she was fostering an ally, a journey not only to uplift Anne, but to reinforce her own leadership. However, the further she plunged into these initiatives, the more she sensed a looming challenge ahead. It wasn't merely about building a visionary project, It was about facing her growing insecurities head-on, particularly as her thoughts about John's skepticism began to feel like an ever-looming reality. As the day progressed, Maria found herself increasingly anxious about how to manage expectations, her own as much as her colleagues'. Questions of accountability clawed at the back of her mind. What if the spark they found faded before their goals materialized? Those chilling thoughts occupied her evenings, casting shadows over her hopes. It was one thing to harness a team's energy. It was another to sustain it. With her goals solidified, Maria prepared her notes for tomorrow's meeting, realizing she needed to create an atmosphere of trust where setbacks could be discussed openly, without fear. As she reviewed her plans, a thought sparked in her mind. Was she truly prepared to expose her vulnerabilities to the very team she was trying to inspire? This new layer of self-reflection intensified the pressure, igniting determination, but also shaking the foundations underneath her apparent confidence. In that moment, a pivotal decision crystallized. The real challenge lay ahead. The time had come for her to face her fears openly and lead by example. Would she unveil her inner struggles to fortify her team's resolve? Or would she cling to an image of certainty that risked alienating their collective progress? As she took a deep breath, Maria understood that her journey was much more than a professional endeavor. It was a defining moment of personal evolution. With her heart pounding, she whispered to herself, "Tomorrow is the day I transform fear into strength." Would she manage to take her own advice, or would fear paralyze her once again? Only time would tell. As the morning sun crept through the blinds, illuminating the edges of her desk, Maria stood poised at the threshold of her own transformation. The past few weeks had reshaped her professional identity and ignited an unwavering spirit within her. Today, however, would demand more than theoretical courage. It would require a display of authenticity and vulnerability unprecedented to her journey thus far. Gathering her materials for the upcoming team meeting, Maria felt an unsettling mix of excitement and trepidation swirling in her chest. She had poured herself into crafting a plan for their workshop series, meticulously outlining not only goals and benchmarks, but also the personal stakes at hand. Yet, as she stared at her notes, it dawned on her that she had neglected an essential element, the very essence of her leadership. Today, she would step fully into her role, embracing each fear and hesitation that had clung to her like a shadow. She felt an undeniable shift within her. She was no longer merely an employee managing a project. She was a leader willing to share her story, her struggles, and her vision. Walking into the conference room, Maria felt the comforting weight of her mission anchor her resolve. As the team assembled, she noticed small signs of anticipation, the buzz of nervous chatter in the air. She inhaled deeply, her heart steadying as she prepared to foster a culture of trust and collaboration. "Thank you all for coming today," Maria began, projecting her voice with earnestness. "Before we delve into our agenda, I want to take a moment to share something personal. I've often struggled with feelings of inadequacy as I stepped into this role." As the words left her lips, she felt vulnerability wash over her, a warmth that connected her to the people in the room. "I know what it's like to fight for recognition, juggling responsibilities, and wondering if I belong." The room went silent, eyes on her. Yet, she pressed on, determined to build bridges where walls had existed. This isn't just about job titles or accolades. It's about creating an inclusive environment where every contribution matters. It's about ensuring that every individual feels empowered to shape our journey ahead. With each recollection of her own battles, those sleepless nights, the sacrifices made for Lily, Maria unveiled not only her journey, but invited her colleagues to share theirs. She opened the floor, earning nods of encouragement as her team members began to recount their own fears and aspirations. The atmosphere shifted from skepticism to solidarity, the walls of doubt crumbling beneath the strength of collective purpose. By the time the meeting concluded, Maria felt a transformation seep into the very fabric of her leadership. It wasn't merely the presentation that mattered, it was the connection forged through raw honesty. Her colleagues had become unified voices in a chorus of empowerment, each fueled by the resonating truth that they were not alone. Days turned into weeks, and under Maria's guidance, the workshop series flourished. But the growth extended far beyond presentation slides and participant feedback. The depth of honesty had sparked something profound within the team. Ideas flowed freely, criticism became constructive, and the spirit of collaboration wove a tapestry of shared success. When the time came for their first workshop, anticipation crackled in the air. As she walked into the room, she sensed the echoes of her former self, the uncertainty and fear, but also a newfound assurance. The space brimmed with enthusiasm, and every face radiated commitment. Maria understood now that she was not just a facilitator, she was a catalyst for change. After the workshop concluded, she stepped aside to review participant feedback. The insights painted a clear picture of growth, but more importantly, they validated the very mission that had ignited her journey. The acknowledgement she received felt deeply fulfilling, highlighting that the courage to share her vulnerabilities had harvested real change, not just in policies, but in the hearts and minds of her colleagues. Each moment expanded her confidence, solidifying her place within this previously intimidating environment. Maria stood tall, recognized not just as a competent professional, but as a leader who had carved out a space for honesty and empowerment. The approval of both her team and superiors signaled a conclusive passage from struggle to leadership. Her obstacles had unshackled her potential. At the end of a particularly rewarding day, Maria reflected on her journey. She had forged not only a framework for success within her firm, but had also woven together her identity as a leader with courage and conviction. She felt pride in her achievements, no longer shadowed by the relentless self-doubt. Maria had not merely survived the complexities of her role, she had conquered them. Each challenge had led to a concrete manifestation of her vision, an established line of communication, and an inspiring series of workshops that elevated her colleagues. In the heart of Maplewood, a hidden warrior had emerged victorious, transforming not just her narrative, but the lives of those welcomed into her journey. As she closed her laptop for the night, a moment of clarity washed over her. This was her story now, a testament to resilience, authenticity, and the ability to rise in the face of adversity. She emerged not just as a leader within the firm, but as a role model for her daughter, proving that the courage to face one's fears could lead to remarkable heights. Together, they would forge ahead, emboldened by the transformational power of embracing one's truth. With certainty and pride, Maria understood that she had defied the expectations once placed upon her. She was ready to take on any challenge that awaited, with her new identity firmly in place. Now I call on you. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this inspiring ending, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see the incredible journey of overcoming challenges. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal stories know the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.